there. Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm Paula Rizzo. Thanks for joining me. Today, we're talking all about how to use video and media to build your expertise. This is something that I learned a long time ago as a TV producer from a fabulous friend of mine who I'm going to introduce you to in a moment. His name is Chris Killam. He is the medicine hunter. He goes all over the world looking for all kinds of medicinal, remedies and recipes and all sorts of things that will heal you naturally. I came to know Chris, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many years ago now, but we worked together for close to a decade, putting all kinds of amazing television together. And one of the best things that I learned from Chris was that he was his own producer. I was there to help him, put some great TV out there, but he was already shooting his own video, doing all of his own stuff, whether or not any network was giving him a platform. Very smart guy. So I'm going to bring him on in just a moment to talk to us about, his philosophy around creating your own video, being your own producer, because guess what? That's what we all are now. And if you want to be out there as an expert, you have to be talking about your expertise more than anybody else. When I first started my blog, listproducer.com, I knew I needed to get myself some media for it to be a real thing. And I just started talking about lists more than anybody else. I don't know that I know more about lists than anybody else, but I definitely talk about it quite a lot. So there's that. I have a checklist for you if you go to paularizzo.com/checklist, all about how to become a go-to media expert. And if you have a friend or somebody who you're thinking, you know what, they might actually really love this conversation, be sure to share this with them. Hit the share button wherever you're watching this right now. Ask questions. We're going to be talking to you live, but if you're watching the replay, absolutely ask questions in the comments. We'll be able to go back to that for sure. And the other thing is that I am a LinkedIn Learning instructor. And what that means is that I have a whole bunch of courses. If you go to paularizzo.com/LinkedIn, you'll be able to check those out. And those are, courses all about stuff like how to set boundaries and protect your time, how to set up your remote office, how to make better lists, all sorts of stuff like that. So if you go to paularizzo.com/LinkedIn, you will learn all about that. And I hope you enjoy it, because guess what? You need to get your time back, because that's what will allow you to make more videos. See how that all comes full circle? It's all about TV. It's all about how you can, be a better person on camera, which I'm thrilled to introduce Chris Killam. Chris, thanks for being here.
Oh, Paula, it has been way too long, but I'm very happy to see you. And if anybody can do inside scoops, goodness knows it's you. You've got more information and experience than a whole multitude of people. So it's a real pleasure to be on with you.
Oh, thanks, Chris. I know it's so nice to have this new wave of media that we have now. It used to be that we would meet in TV studios. Now we're meeting in totally different cities, being able to do this way. It's cool. It works.
Although, I liked meeting in the TV studios, and there were pastries and coffee and things. I mean, there's none of that here at my home. So, and
true.
I think the adjustment during COVID-19 of being virtual in many ways has advantages in terms of helping people to learn and develop new skills. But I also really miss the contact and the hustle of being in the studio.
Yeah, I agree. There's an energy there. There's one thing, it can be, anyone can learn or be taught. I mean, that's what I do for a living now, to be better on camera, to be able to teach people to connect with that camera like it's a person. But it's not the same as the energy you get from real life, from being there, So you, for years, we worked together. We created, hundreds of hours of television together, right? Whether it be, eating some weird thing in Chinatown, right? Durian ice cream. That was our very first episode ever.
Very first. And I have to tell you something. As soon as we did that, I said to myself, these folks are people I want to do as much as possible with. And, we did. But yeah, we started out with really stinky, nasty ice cream.
Really gross food. You were a good sport, that's always key when you get an expert who is game for whatever. As a TV producer, to find somebody who's like, sure, I'll eat that. That's fine. Or, yep, I'll do that. Not exactly what you do, right? You do teach people about all kinds of foods and remedies and things from all over the world, but you're not necessarily looking for the grossest. but you were for it.
No, no. In fact, sometimes I'm perfectly happy to avoid the grossest, but you also have to know what people like to see. And in addition to doing, maybe really intelligent comment, hopefully intelligent commentary on, let's say, the benefits of vitamin D or echinacea or whatever, at the same time, I knew and we knew full well that people love to see mature guys eating really disgusting stuff that perhaps they wouldn't choose to eat themselves. So, there always has to be a bit of entertainment. Otherwise, you get a lot of viewer drop off.
It's true. It's true. It was a really, sort of sneaky way to get a lot of people to listen to things, because then after that, we created a segment called Nature's Medicine Cabinet, which was a really great way for us to get your information out there and, to be able to talk about natural medicine in a way that, look, I worked at Fox News Channel. Sure. It wasn't the place where you might have thought you might have gotten the most coverage in your career, yet you did. So it's important to not judge the media outlet. You never know.
Oh, I'll tell you a quick story, Paula. In 1978, I believe, the satellite Skylab was falling to the ground. We knew it was going to fall to Earth. And I was living in a house where a physicist lived, and he sent a letter to the local paper. Now, you've never heard of the Brookline Beacon, okay, because it has like 4 readers. Right. And he sent a letter to the Brookline Beacon saying, I think if we all meditated, we could keep Skylab up, right? This is the smallest newspaper on Earth. Right. And somebody from Associated Press saw the letter. And over the course of 3 weeks, I did 160 media interviews with outlets all over the world. And we wound up getting NASA involved, the Johnson Space Center involved in a meditation to save Skylab. And it was broadcast all over the Earth on a vast radio network of collaborating stations. So went, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And it all came from this silly little letter in the world's smallest newspaper. So you don't know where stuff's going to go. You don't know who's watching, and you can't go, oh, no, that's too small for me.
Yes. Do not be a snob. You've heard it here first. Chris Killam says no snobbery.
Oh, no, not at all.
No, it's very true. That is a very, very good point, and also, media begets media. You do one thing, like what you're saying, and it just snowballs. It's a really great way to get evidence out there that you can do the thing that you want to. But one of the things that you did early on, which I think is probably part of why we consistently did things together, was because you were already producing your own content. You are out in the world, all over the world, shooting videos, interviewing people, finding really cool things. So you already sort of had that eye for it. People are just awakening to this idea now. But tell me about what your strategy had been and still is.
Well, I do travel around the world investigating natural remedies of all different kinds, as you said. And, if I go, for example, to China to investigate tea in Sichuan province, there's an arc to the journey. There's a beginning and a middle and an end. And there are people I'll meet and places I'll see and circumstances I'll get into. And what I do is I take notes, I take photographs, and I shoot video so that when I come back, if I'm going to give a seminar, people get up, they show pictures of folks in lab coats looking at equipment that they don't know what the heck it is, and what I like to do is come back showing indigenous people in remote and exotic locations working with the herbs that eventually wind up on the shelves of the stores that you go into. And so from the very beginning of my investigations into botanicals, I always kept notes, always photographed, often shot video as well. And that content has enabled me to not only give presentations all over the world, but then when people like you say, hey, what would you like to do? And I say, well, let's do something on rhodiola. I've got some great video from Siberia. Well, we can do that and throw in some still images as well.
Yeah, it's so true. It was a great way to be able to, showcase your expertise, to be able to say, I was literally there, in the jungle with this herb, and here's evidence of me doing it, so that is important. But for TV producers, we want the video, and we might
Right.
not be able to go with you. As much
Right.
as you wanted me to go to the Amazon for all these years, it never happened. But I feel like I was able
You
to be
would have
there with
loved
you.
it.
I don't know if I'm built for the Amazon, Chris. I'm not
You
really
know,
sure.
you might not be, Paula, and that's fine. But the thing is that if people are going to do media, there's a temptation on many people's parts, I know from conversation, to imagine that talking heads are entertaining. And for the most part, they're not really so much. You have to have more than that. And I have been in the very fortunate position of going to exotic and sometimes wildly out there places, having experiences that I'm deeply grateful for, that very few people will get to have, whether it's firewalking in the South Pacific, or drinking tea in southern China, or riding elephants, or being on camels in the Samarkand desert, or wherever it is. And I want to bring back that story. I think in a way it's also about fostering understanding. Everybody's motivated by different things, but for me, I like to show that there are other people in the world living radically different lives from our own, making marvelous contributions to the world, and in often producing things that we use in our lives, whether it's a tea or a coffee or an herbal remedy or a superfood or whatever that might be.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things too, from the moment I met you, I know this guy has strong opinions about things.
No.
And that's not you. And that, as a producer, as someone who wants to make, a really good show, that's what you want. You want somebody who's going to stand up there and say something of substance, whether or not I agree, or the viewers agree, or the host agrees. You and Manny, Dr. Manny Alvarez, who we worked with for many, many years, you guys butted heads a lot. He was traditional medicine, you were natural medicine. As much as you embraced and loved each other, there were times when you didn't always agree. How do you walk that line to be able to say, I have opinions about things, people need to hear this, and be able to come out and say it with authority, and grace? Really, a lot of experts shy away from giving their opinion because they think, I don't want to be shut out. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I learned something very valuable from my mother, who was a professor of communications, a radio disc jockey for 45 years, and a TV personality. Talk about what you know.
Mm-hmm.
That was her. Just talk about what you know. And I think that if you're well informed and you have opinions about things, I mean, I'm well informed about plant medicine, so I may encounter medical doctors who are skeptical. And then in that circumstance, the challenge is to deliver enough science, enough sort of bridgeable understanding that they can buy in.
Sure.
Or at least, we don't come to blows. And, like I found with Manny Alvarez, he was actually very open. It wasn't his area of expertise, and he really did look to me to be the expert on things natural. But, I think that I always like to expand the tent, if you will. I know one of the best things that happened for me at Fox was that we went out onto the international feed, and I had vastly more viewers all over the world than in the United States. And I used to go to airports and things, and people would stop me and go, "Aren't you that medicine guy?"
I love it.
Well, yeah, and I did too. And I think the thing was that if you have strong positions that you can absolutely back up with substance, then the trick is to deliver those, especially if you're encountering some resistance, graciously, and not back somebody into a corner, but just say, "Hey, listen, here's something maybe you didn't know."
Sure.
And we did that, time and again with the segments that you produced, because a lot of what we produced was not familiar to the viewers who were out there.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true. And to be able to, you're right, back it with some science, back it with, something. This is not, there's a difference between an opinion show or, someone and news, which a lot of the people who are watching are, hopefully going to be doing some news segments at some, time, whether it be a podcast or television, radio, whatever it is, it's probably going to be for a news program. So you really do need to have facts. You need to be able to back up what you're saying with something really, substantial. One of the other things too is that you were able to and have been doing media for many, many years. And it has helped you in many ways to, build up your expertise speaking and doing all these other things. Talk to me a little bit about that, about sort of like building this lifelong career using video and using media and how that's been able to help you.
Well, I was really fortunate as a kid, because my mom and dad both worked in radio and TV. He was on the production and sales side, and she was talent. So I was in radio stations from the time I was just a little kid,
Oh, that's
and
so
in
great.
TV stations. And I knew the announcers, and those were the people who came to our home for dinner or for poker or whatever. And so it was a world that was familiar to me and people that I really enjoyed. And I was fortunate to do my first commercial, I think when I was 7 for grape juice with my mom. We were at the station and she said, "Do you want to do a commercial?" And I said, "Well, what do I have to do?" And she said, "You've got to drink grape juice and say it's good and then ask for another glass." And I said, how hard can that be? I'm with my mother. So,
right.
So anyway, that early exposure and then little bits from there on, made me comfortable with media at an early age. But I also found that a lot of it is if you're willing to show up. Around circa 80, I had a girlfriend who was a TV producer for a local television in Boston magazine format show in the morning. And there were many times when we had blizzards when guests were canceling left and right. And I was the guy who would drag myself out, in a nor'easter and go to WBZ and do a segment on like how not to hurt your back shoveling snow or,
right.
whatever.
You were available. You were there. Yes.
Yeah. And I think showing up is a lot of it, but also, and I kind of, I do this, Paula. Sorry, I drifted sideways. I don't even recall what the original question was.
Well, I mean, you've had a long career, using media, talking to the media. How has that helped you to sort of propel you into different realms? Because you've been all over the place, all over the world anyway. But how has media helped you to grow that? I mean, you've done Dr. Oz a zillion times. Like, there's a lot out there with you, as the expert.
It becomes privileged access. That's really what it is. People recognize, this guy does radio and TV. He's got a long background in this. He's somebody to pay attention to. He's somebody to spend time with. So I have found that, with my reputation for media going decades, when I go to different places, I'm often known ahead of time for that. And that makes people want to share information. Maybe I go asking for a particular thing and they say, "Yeah, we'll show you that, but we also want to show you this or tell you about this." So I think that it has really opened things up. And for, I don't know, 22, 24 years or so of my career, I spent on average 20 or 25% of my time working media. So whatever else I was doing, I was doing that. And making sure that I was unfailingly on it, sending out inquiries, making contact with people. And there's something else that I want to say, Paula, that cycles back to something we discussed right at the beginning. You never know where people are going to wind up. Sometimes, I've done a 5 a.m. 3-minute segment for a magazine format show in the boondocks of Iowa during a snowstorm. And that person eventually, that producer gets kicked up to the networks and they call and they say, "Hey, listen, we did something on such and such station, but now I'm on Good Morning America. Would you like to come on?"
Yes.
So, you don't sneer at the small things. You don't go,
Good
"Oh
point.
God, that's just, that's not my league," because your league will change, and so will the league
Yes.
of the producers and the talent.
Very smart. Very, very smart move. But also, you're a very nice person. I've known you for years, obviously, continue to work with you, but you'll talk to, the cab driver and tell the cab driver what he need, you should get this natural remedy. You should do like you just want the information out there, right?
Well, I also love people, and
Yeah.
that helps me in the field. When I go to wherever, a tea plantation, or with harvesters into the mountains, or whatever the situation may be. I love people, and so I want to know. Well, like, how did you first start doing this? Or, I mean, I
Right.
like to find out about folks, and in the studio, it only makes sense that if there are camera people and sound people and other folks that you're going to see repetitively, you become familiar. So you walk in,
Sure.
you go, "Hey, Jack, how you doing?" Or I mean, it just seems like, everybody's a person, everybody's got a life, everybody deserves to be acknowledged, and then I don't plan it this way, but then they go, "Well, let's make sure we really work to produce a hell of a segment because this guy's a nice guy."
Totally, totally.
You
It,
know,
it makes all the difference. It really does. And also, I
yeah.
have to say, anytime there was Medicine Hunter Day at Fox, we'd be like, "Oh, Medicine Hunter's coming." People would be like, "Oh, when is he coming? I have a question," and people would run down to the green room and be
Oh
like,
yeah.
"I have a question for Chris about this new remedy I heard about," or
Oh
"This
yeah.
thing is happening to me." It's like you end up diagnosing all of these, remedies for people, which is, you were always very sweet about doing that for
Well,
us.
I got it in hair and makeup every single time for 9
Totally.
years, and I love that. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
my daughter has a problem with her skin. It's like,
Right.
okay. And I'm
Okay.
sitting there getting stuff put on me, and and it's like, okay, so talk to me. Yeah,
Right, right.
it's wonderful. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Let's talk a little bit about being good on camera. So that's
Mm,
another reason why, we were able to work together for so
right.
long because you already you obviously had a background your entire life in television.
Sure.
So people now are trying to be better on camera. I'm doing a lot of work to help people feel more comfortable. But what have you found to really work best about talking directly to that camera, being able to get your information out there? What tips do you have for people who might be a little newer to this?
Well, I know for certain, speaking with a lot of people, that when a camera is pointed at them, they have a different sense of communication, almost as though they should be or do something else.
Mm,
And
yeah,
the camera actually becomes a bit of an obstacle. The fact is, you're addressing people, and as long as that is a lens to people, and you can keep that sense of, you know, uh, being as natural as you can, obviously being poised and being articulate, and being focused in your delivery, that's very helpful. I do think that a lot of people need media training, especially now with podcasts and webcasts of all different kinds. I encounter a great many hosts who are intelligent, who are well informed in their fields, and who are absolutely dreadful on a camera or microphone. They just, they long, awkward pauses, not sure how to follow up. And all of that takes away from the experience. So I think it's a combination of finding ways to become comfortable in that environment, really knowing your message, whatever comes at you,
sure.
uh, and knowing also, this is another thing, with very few exceptions, maybe like the Jerry Springer show or something, producers and people who work on television want to make you look good. They're not there to embarrass you. They're not there to make you feel awkward. They're not there to necessarily put you on the spot in some sort of terrible confrontational way. So you have support. You've kind of got wind in your sails. And I think a lot of people are just plain afraid, or feel like they're on the surface of the moon when they get
Sure.
in a TV studio and a camera's pointed at them and that little red light comes on.
Yeah, yeah, it is true. Producers, they want to look good too. They want to show their boss, look at this great guest I brought in and how
Right.
awesome this segment came out. Like we want you to be good. We want to make sure that you're highlighted in a really great way. Yeah, that's a great point.
There was, if I can tell you,
Sure.
because I love to tell stories.
Yes,
A
please.
few years ago, there was a television show in Los Angeles called The Preachers, and it
Okay.
was for Southern Black Baptist ministers, really wonderful guys, 4 of them, and they were trying in their show to be open-minded. Okay, so
Mhm.
so they had like people come on and talk about cannabis and different things, and they really, really tried. And somebody pitched them, I don't know who it was, on ayahuasca, the Amazonian psychoactive brew, as a
Sure.
god drug. Okay, so they called. I wound up flying out to LA. So the setup was, I was in the middle of these 4 really nice, friendly, very, very devoted evangelical Baptist preachers, and we had a 7-minute show that was just a scream, because they were trying so hard to be open-minded, and I was doing what I do, talking about spirituality and the divine, and
Sure.
how you can experience it in a lot of different ways. And it came off very well. It was probably the funniest thing I ever did, and it was an example of marching right into a circumstance in which I was so clearly the odd person out, and
Sure.
at the same time that they didn't necessarily agree with me or say that they wanted to see Jesus in a hallucinogenic vision. We
Right.
all got on famously.
Yeah,
So,
see, and that it's true, like that. It doesn't have to be that you agree with the person or whatever. Like you've
no.
always been very good, in that way. We did do quite a few ayahuasca segments, I have to
Oh yeah.
say.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We did. I'm gonna ask you in a second about post pandemic travel, because I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. But I just want to quickly go over and see some of the comments that have come in, throughout the show. We have a hello from California from Amy. Hi, Amy. Thanks
Hi,
for
Amy.
being here. We have Barbara saying, hi, Paula. Hi there, Barbara. Paru says, it's not that I know more about a topic. It's that I talk about that topic more than anyone else. I tell my clients that all the time. It's so true, right? I mean, to be able to be out there, then you become known as that person. I mean,
Right.
right? People think of me as the list person. They think of you as the medicine hunter. It's like real. You talk about it a lot.
Sure.
It is what it
Sure.
is.
Sure.
Well, this is great. Well, if there are any more questions, this is the time to ask your questions. We'll be able to take those, and if you're watching the replay, leave them below. We'll check those out as well. But Chris, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on post-pandemic travel, because now both of us are now fully vaccinated. We are able to. The CDC has said you can travel. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I had, up until COVID-19, I spent 40 to 50% of my time every year traveling. So for me, this has been a huge loss. And I
Sure.
just recently went across country and hiked in the California desert with friends for a week, and that was wonderful after 14 months of not even seeing an airport. I think that the big problem we face now is that requirements of entry in different countries are inconsistent, because every country's got its own unique situation. I noticed that many of the countries I want to go to do projects, botanical projects, are either still terribly restricted, going through a very bad time with COVID-19,
Sure.
or they require something like 14-day quarantine. So I think that, but at the very same time, more and more countries are now cautiously allowing full unrestricted entry to those who are fully vaccinated. So
Right.
I think it's going to remain inconsistent, certainly through fall.
Mhm.
And I think probably by late fall, many of the countries who don't want Americans at all, because we've had the highest rates of infection and the highest number of deaths due to COVID-19, especially considering our relatively small population compared to some other countries, I think that they will be allowing us in again. But right now, it's still very difficult. Even though you and I are safe to travel,
Sure.
it's hard to find places to go to, certainly for me, for the work that I do.
Yeah, right. You're going to places that are, you're not always staying at the Ritz-Carlton somewhere, right? You're like, it's
No,
not
not
always.
usually. I mean, sometimes I'm sleeping on a boat. Sometimes
Right.
I'm sleeping in a native hut. And I have to say, I love those times,
Sure.
these are wonderful life experiences. And I think if you love something and you do media about it, that love, that real ardent involvement comes through in your communication.
Sure. Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's harder if you're talking about, I don't know what, something incredibly boring like the size of sheet metal screws.
That's right.
But
Not
now
gonna
here
have the
we got a
same
quarter
zing.
incher here.
No, not the same. Not the same at all. We have a bunch of international people joining us.
Okay.
Sylvia's from Holland. Hello, so glad
Howdy,
to have
Sylvia.
you. We have someone here from Mumbai. Wonderful. Look, you're still getting your international cred all over the world. You didn't need to leave home, Chris. That's
I
great.
know, but I want to shake people's hands. I want to
I
eat with
know.
them. I want to sit
You're
down
a
and have
people
tea.
person. Totally. You need to be with people. I get it completely. So what my last question for you is going to be where are you heading next? Like what is your first when it's okay for you to do and go and do it the way that you want to do it? Where will you go?
Well, I'm looking at some work possibly in Malaysia or Thailand, or going back down to Vanuatu, South Pacific, which is
Mhm.
the last place I went to and returned from before COVID-19.
Wow. Wow.
So, I mean, and I have a couple of conventions scheduled late fall and early spring, but I don't really consider those travel. I mean, travel's going out into the forest. So I'm not sure. I have to line up clients to sponsor me, and so
Sure.
far over the years that's gone well. But it'll probably be Southeast Asia, Paula.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, absolutely keep us posted on your travels. Of course, if you want to, stay in touch with Chris, go to medicinehunter.com. That's where you can find him and follow him on social media and see where in the world is Chris, which is my favorite game. Chris, thank you so much for being here. It's been
Oh,
so
Paula.
fabulous to
Yeah.
chat again and do some TV in a different way.
I just have to say you were the best producer I ever had.
I love it. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that so much. I'm so glad we were able to do this again.
You
To be
bet.
continued. There will be more for sure. I promise. And thank you all for watching. I'm so glad that you were here with us. Leave those comments below. Make sure that you, hit us up in those comments. We'll be able to check those out, even if you're watching the replay. And until next time, I'm Paula Rizzo. I will see you later.